to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rotten about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And they got away.
You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed it is. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact that we're all up in your face. It is time once again for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. Here we are. Normal time slot, Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Why am I exhausted? I haven't the foggiest idea. It's been a busy summer, and we're into the second week of June only. So there you go. But I am not so exhausted to say that I'm very excited for tonight's show, where the mighty mastermind. I could have made that more alliterative. I really had tried. The incredible Thymme Jones is going to be on. And again, I realized inadvertently with John Wright earlier in the week that this is a people who play drums that are frequently called proggy, even if they don't necessarily play prog weak. I don't have an acronym for that, but feel free to drop it in the comments if you feel so inclined. Either which way you slice it, very excited to talk to this guy. He's done other things besides Sheer Accident, but just we could spend like 10 episodes just on Sheer Accident, and that would be enough. But before we do literally any of that, welcome to Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I am your host, Conan Neutron. I'm a rock and roll lifer that has been touring and recording for 23 years. Most known for the band Conan Neutron's Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life, and I use the format of this very long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect, but who may not be household names. This is episode 337. Now, if this is your first time listening to the show, archives of it are always available for free, no ads, no sponsors, no kidding, at ProtonicReversal.com. However, if you want to support the show and get episodes sooner, $1 a month at Patreon.com/ProtonicReversal will achieve that goal. And if you like the show, or even just a single episode, please feel free to like, subscribe on your platform of choice, share it around the internet, and even leave a review. All of that helps people discover the show, beat back the almighty algorithmic... why do I put that in there if I trip on it? Algorithmic overlords. And it's just a darn nice thing to do. Just a darn nice thing to do. You know what else is darn nice? I'm sitting here with Thymme Jones. Hey, Tim, how you doing, man?
Thank you for unmuting my mic.
It makes it much easier to have a show, I've found. I was thinking today, as I kind of just did a sampling of the many moods of Sheer Accident, I suppose, which could be your After Dark record, I suppose, that there's such a comprehensive catalog that it fits in a unique category of bands like The Fall, where it can be almost daunting for people to know how to jump in, like where to jump in, right? That said, after not having bought a Sheer Accident record for, we'll just charitably say, a very long time, I saw you in Louisville, and I was like, hey, I haven't got a record of yours in like 20 years. Which one can you recommend to me? And then I forget what you said, but somehow it was like, well, what kind of stuff are you into? I'm like, well, one of my favorite bands is Cheap Trick. And you go, and you pull out the one that has the cover of Dream Police in it. And it was just, I was like, great.
Yeah.
And talk about knowing your audience. And I love it too, because it's such a Sheer Accident cover, and the fact that like there's that little 5 to 10 second proggy breakdown in that song. And you kind of make that a whole movement within the song.
Well, we finished it for them.
Yeah, right. You informed those fellas, hey, by the way, we finished your song. But I've also seen this same interaction without the specificity of, say, a Conan Neutron, and you're like, well, like I don't know, like there's a lot. Like what what colors do you like? What like what arbitrary criteria can I put on this? And I guess what I'm saying is it's a very impressive and comprehensive discography, but it's a varied discography as well. And as much as that can delight a certain type of listener, it can be daunting to just be like where people want like the the Twitter length 140 character summation of what your band does, right? And you've done a lot and continue to do a lot, and it continues to be vibrant and interesting. I mean, at a certain point, like I even tried to calculate how many records you had today. And like, I was like, well, does that one count? I'm not sure. It's like, it's definitely 20. I know that. But is it 20 or 24? Like, do you even know, Tim? I guess that's the first question.
It is a tough one. Well, first of all, my favorite thing when people come up to me after shows and they're like, hey, which of these albums did you do stuff from the most? I'm like, we didn't actually do anything from any of the albums, Well, we can't even make it easy for them in that way. But
right.
I think we're up to number 25. 26. Fringements 2 is coming out in a week, and that's 25.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we're coming out with our Easy Listening album in February, and that's number 26.
Naturally, of course you would. Yeah, I wasn't aware of either of those. So, and believe me, I'm someone that does my research. Not I do my own research, meaning I look up what some guy says about vaccines on the internet. Just like I actually do my own research. But that's part of the fun and adventure of Cheer Accident. But that's also part of the challenge of easily summarizing things, especially maybe at the merch table or whatnot. But I mean, that said, it's been consistent in the fact that there's a consistent sense of adventure. Like I remember the first show I saw of you guys where it's like, oh, a lot more horns than last time. there's a brass section now. Like what's okay, cool, right on. Didn't expect it, but here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're definitely rocking the brass these days.
It's pretty baked into the entire thing, I'd say at this point. But I love
about the most recent show you were at.
Yeah. Well, I saw.
Okay, gotcha.
I feel like you had some pretty big brass stuff going on at that Milwaukee show. I guess that was pre-COVID, a little while ago as well. Like it seemed like it was pretty in there. But then also like there's little things like what's it, Back in Black like has an appearance in the set list. Like here and there, but like like mixed in a very Cheer Accident fashion. And I guess getting back to like the comprehensive catalog, you actually do a pretty good job of representing different eras of Cheer Accident at this point as a live act. But holy, I almost wouldn't wish that on an enemy. Like how do you pick those? How do you pick songs?
Draw them out of a hat,
like a Powerball.
No, it's really fun having like this many decades to draw upon, and we have 8 people, and I guess we had 7 the night you saw our house show, but
yeah, the last time, yeah,
8 people in the band, and so we can do literally any era, any phase, any aspect of the band, which is really satisfying to me,
Well, and it's so, yeah, you have the ability, you got these great players too, right? These players that are really bought into the whole thing. And everybody's a very accomplished musician, but everyone seems to have the same level of like sense of adventure almost, maybe is the best way to put it towards doing it. And I think
was it, yeah.
And I think that probably helps a lot. But then, by the same token, like, I've seen you like pull stuff just completely out of left field where it's like, oh yeah, I have that on a CD literally buried somewhere behind me about, two columns deep from, the 90s or something along those lines. And I think that's
You were there in the 90s.
Well, I was listening to you guys. I don't think I saw you play until the 2000s, but I had 2 CDs at the time, and if I may, I was on the Skin Graft E group before Yahoo even bought it out, which is hilarious because it all sounds like Swahili now to kids.
Yeah.
And so that's how I knew about Sheer Accident early for somebody who lived in Oakland, California. But then, like, by that same token, like, I feel like it was coming from a completely different world. And I didn't have the frame of reference of seeing you live until, like, I don't know, like mid-2000s, something along those lines. So, and that was, and I was like, oh, wow, this is a whole, like, I was like, I don't recognize literally any of this music, but it's great.
Do you know any of the Sleepy Time folks?
The Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum, of course, yeah. And they're back to doing stuff. Too, like, which is amazing.
We'll go with them. We already have a show scheduled at Lincoln Hall for next
year
with them. Yeah,
very cool. Yeah, I've been trying to talk them to come on the show because I mean I know them from back in the Idiot Flesh days, so like even pre-sleep, which was a great show as well. But I think Sleepy Time is definitely well, that seems like a band that has like common cause with what you do. Not to say that there's like musically an exactness style-wise, but like the kind of the sense of adventure and pushing the limits, and realize too when I say prog or progressive, I don't mean like the genre prog, which is like, oh yeah, you like I have those same King Crimson and Yes records too, and you sound like those. You know what I mean? Like it's like I mean in the fact that it is actually progressive music, like in the fact that like they're just messing with the idea of music, even sometimes, like the format of it, like the song. I forget the song where you just like it's on the record 3 times or something along those lines. Like it's just like, hey, is this the same song over again? It's changing the.
But out with the title, we say transposition and then in parentheses same mix.
Right. Like just the idea of you know, like, you know, whatever, Voodoo Child's Slight Return, right? You know, that kind of, it seems to come from a joy of being in the world of music and working within it. And again, going back to the Cheap Trick song where you have like the little, the movement that is like their kind of cool orchestral breakdown in the original. Like, you know, that's fun. That's a fun thing to do, and it sounds like you guys.
Well, yeah, but I mean, didn't you always hear that part and think to yourself, gosh, I really wish they would develop that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, so there you go.
You're welcome. You know, doing all the heavy lifting for Rick Nielsen, you know?
Yeah, like I say, I think the check's in the mail for that. So
it's the difference between Rockford and Palatine. You know, we folks from Palatine, we work a little harder. You know. I don't think there's any way we can like comprehensively go through your entire catalog, but yeah, I know. We could. It would be a multi-part epic, and doesn't mean we won't do it eventually. But I think that I would love to hear your impression of when Sheer Accident started up. So this was like post ... right? This is like Brise-Glace and ... were pre Sheer Accident. Am I getting that timeline correctly? No, it's complicated. So
okay.
I always tell people.
I'm trying. I'm sorry.
It's. I understand. Like it's confusing because Sheer Accident really kind of started out more as an idea or sort of a way of doing things, where a bunch of friends would just get together and record stuff on the cassette tape. And I said this in a recent interview. That Mike Greenlees and Jim Drummond and I got together on New Year's, going into 1981, and I consider that the beginning of the band, even though we weren't a band yet. And we didn't even play live until 1987, but we made all these cassettes that we were just pass around amongst ourselves, and they'd be like an hour long, and they would be just full of different types of stuff, like completely different approaches. Like, here's a little pop song, here's a 10-minute improv. We weren't concerned about being cohesive or coherent. And then actually started up in 1982, and I did that for a few years. And Sure Accent was still kind of hovering around in the shadows. And then we became a proper band, I would say, in like 1986 or so. And as I said, our first show was in 1987. And Brise-Glace didn't come around until 1994. And that was pretty short-lived. More of a project than a band, I would say.
And my understanding is that the name comes from like the greeting card section, right? Or is it like a greeting card category melange? Is it a melange of greeting card? Sure, melange.
Yeah, it was in the Hallmark shop in Palatine, and I just saw this category of cards, cheer-accident, and it had someone in the hospital with their leg up in the air in this gigantic cast, and it just hit me. And if you want to get literal about it, which I wasn't getting at the time, I was just enjoying the combination of those words, but
yeah,
after several decades of being a band, it's like, oh yeah, I guess we kind of are pro serendipity. So if you want to tie it in this, A plus B equals C kind of way, you can do that,
I'd love to see a bumper sticker that says "I'm pro serendipity and I vote." that would be good.
Yeah.
The first song I remember hearing from you guys in any iteration is "Fillet of Nod." That was and like it was absent any context whatsoever. It was on a a mixtape, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is cool! Like, what is this?" Like, oh, it's this band Sure Accent.
I'm glad that was the only song you had heard from us for a while, because I kind of consider that to be our only song. Like, all the other ones are just sort of extra. Like, all the other songs, they have like words and melodies and just a bunch of notes and rhythms and stuff. And Fillet of Nod is really all you need. Just that one chord. Even most of Fillet of Nod is sort of superfluous. It's really just that last chord and that last groove is all you really need. And when we play it live now, we just cut to the chase, and we only do the one chord.
Yeah, it's instead of "Don't bore us, get to the chorus," it's "Don't bore us, just get to the last chord."
Right.
But it struck me just from a perspective of, again, absent of any context whatsoever, of like, oh wow, this is like interesting. This is cool. Like, haven't heard a lot of things like that. Like, it reminded me of sort of the approach of like Echoes by Pink Floyd, or Audubon, or Maggot Brain, or something along those lines, in the sense of not that it reminded me of any of those songs, but it was like this exercise in repetition and sort of like playing with the expectations of the listener to have that mean whatever it means to them.
Yeah, I mean, you hear the word when people mention repetition, the word meditative comes up, but it's pretty...
I took great pains to not say that, by the way. Let the record show. Okay, sorry.
I'm taking a hit for the team here, But that, especially the studio version, is pretty fast, and it's pretty dissonant.
Yeah.
And it's it's pretty right upon you, and it kind of almost dares you to not slip into a meditative state, but we do it, when we do it in the park for say 8 hours, we've slowed the tempo down quite a bit, and it is a lot more of a groove, and I can see people finding that more meditative, perhaps.
And I think there's more. I think there are more modern examples of that now. Like I think of that. There's that band Oneida. They have that song "Sheets of Easter." That's the same sort of kind of thing. Where like, whoa, all right, this is what's happening now. Okay, like very
Buckle
cool.
up.
Or people are like, ah, and they like leave the room. Either way, depending, and either one is a valid reaction. But I think that it's notable that, like for some bands, I think Filet of Nod would just be like, the centerpiece of what that band does, right? But then it's sort of like, oh no, they have songs that sound like if Chicago got hit by a drug that turns you into Robert Fripp, I mean, like it's like they have some, these like straight up AM gold that has like the most bizarre breakdowns you've ever heard, like and things like that. That it's not just the one thing, but it's all uniquely your thing. Now, was there ever like as far as a North Star for the various iterations of Sheer Accident? Has there ever been like a mission statement, if you will, or anything along those lines beyond just challenging and creating and outdoing yourself?
It's funny that our friend Scott Rutledge, who writes a lot of our lyrics, actually, he's sort of our Hal David,
Sure, yeah.
if you will. And God, he probably did write a mission statement at some point, and I probably should have come prepared to read it. But no, we've never really had any sort of official mission statement, but it is along the lines of what you just described, to just keep pushing forward and, don't rest on our laurels like that Cheap Trick band, where they
those lazy asses, yeah.
Proggy section and they think they're done, It's like, come on, work a little harder.
I remember now that it wasn't just a mixtape. It was one of the Camp Skingraft compilations that I first heard. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's pretty funny because I believe that's the 5-second version.
It is, but then I had someone's like, "Hey, there's a longer version of that." I'm like, "Oh, great! I would love to hear it." Because I don't understand what I just heard, and that's hence the mixtape. So it's all kind of, I mean, this is the 90s, right? So it's like that was a while ago, but and the time I was working at a record store, and again, for the younger listeners of the show, it used to be that not all music was available immediately at the touch of a button, but yeah, I was discovering a lot of other kind of cool freaky music that I did not have access to at my old hometown in Central California. But I think that I do remember too, like here, there was like the theme from Shaft, right? Was that like that was a thing that you guys like? Yeah. Just be like, and it was a big who are these guys energy, like in a good way, you know what I mean? Like what the hell? Like what are these guys up to? But it seemed like, for lack of a better term, and I don't mean this. I don't mean to use this word in a way that robs it of importance, but fun music that was great. I've seen people use that as an insult. I'm like, how did you make the word fun insulting? But anyway, because if there's something that I would say about prog bands, most of them aren't very fun, man. Sorry, I love them, peace and love, but not very fun.
We don't run from fun. That's for sure.
That could be the box set name. We don't run from fun. I think that's a dream.
It's better be fun. Better be a fun 9/8. Or
I'm walking. I'm walking home. Can you tell me how the association with Skingraft came about?
That's funny because I distinctly remember Mark Fisher not putting out Not a Food. I mean, I was associated with Skingraft as an individual before Sheer Accident was on the label. And I guess, once my other bands went like multi-platinum, like Brise-Glace and Yonah and You Fantastic, once I kind of established a reputation of someone that delivered, he was willing to take the Sheer Accident risk,
That Yonah, man, I forgot about Yonah Kit. That was a great little band, man. That was a cool record.
It's one of the best 4-day bands around. It's great because the band literally existed for 4 days. KK Null sent Jim O'Rourke and Darren Gray and am I blanking out on who else is in the band? No, it's those. Yeah,
it was those four, right?
It's those 4 people. We all got cassettes in the mail, and we learned our parts to his guitar riffs. He didn't have any vocals on the cassette. We just came up with our own parts, went to Albini's basement and rehearsed for like half a day, recorded the next day, mixed the day after that, and that's the history of Yonah Kit.
There you go.
Fast forward, 3 decades later, and Sheer Accident's playing in Rome, and the first thing this guy says to me when he comes up to me after the show is, "I really love that Yonah Kit record." It's like, that's cool.
Right on.
Do you have any of 25 Sheer Accident albums? No, you don't?
Oh, well, let me direct you to the merch table. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's up your education. Well, yeah, because it's and that's the this is gonna sound like a weird analogy, but I was talking to Alex Newport, who of course was in Fudge Tunnel and Theory of Ruin and other bands, but the Fudge Tunnel was the big one. But he did a record called Nail Bomb that was with one of the guys in Sepultura that was kind of like, from his perspective, was oh, cool, this is a fun thing that we're doing, right on, this is cool. And that, like, he's actually gotten kind of salty about, like, getting asked about it. Oh, that's the best thing you've ever done. Best thing I've ever done. I was like, it's like a week. Yeah. Have you heard anything I've done the last 20 years?
Yeah. After a while, you kind of just have to embrace that sort of ridiculousness,
Right.
And
at least they're listening to something. I mean, Jesus Christ,
I mean, we've almost made it an ethos within Sheer Accident. I'm like, hey, how about the harder we work on something and the more time we spend on something, the more ignored it gets. Let's just go with that,
Yeah, I mean, well, because the craft that you guys do with all the records, I mean, it's very, for anyone that cares to pay attention, it's very noticeable, and they sound very lush, like my friend Gareth from USA Nails says. It's lush. It's a lush record. Oh, okay. Lush.
It's a satisfying word.
It is a satisfying word. Got a nice onomatopoeia to it. But I almost feel like since there aren't a lot of bands that really do what you do, whatever it is that you do, that it doesn't slot nicely into this, it's a such and such band. Meaning that, like, I used to call it as like record store syndrome, where you got to file the CDs with the records or whatever, and like, this is indie rock, this is metal, this is jazz, this is Rostabilly Skank, whatever, doesn't matter, whatever it happens to be. Whereas it's not just record to record; it's almost song to song. something different. But that's kind of what makes it an exciting experience for the right listener. Yet, again, going back...
Thank God for alphabetical order, you know?
You're in the C's.
Can find Can, you know? That's who we are. We're the band that's right after Can.
Exactly. Good company, really. Good company. Well, yeah, and I mean, that used to matter like even more, right? Because it's sort of like, I should know this because I used to have to do this as a job, but like I think like it's like the R's and the N's I think are the most crowded sections in the record store. Like there's the most bands that have those names.
S would be up there, wouldn't it?
I think so. It's been a long time, man. It's like the one and only retail job I had, and I was 17, so I'm definitely not 17 now, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm just trying, like, do you have to, because you do go out and play, and you got to, it's a big ensemble, sometimes smaller, bigger than others, but what are those booking conversations like? Like, how do, like, do you just have to go to people that know who the hell you are and, hey, we're coming through? Great.
It's really good timing that you mentioned that. Because, boy, we're going out to the Northeast in July, and it's been a bitch to book this thing. Oh, my God. Like, we go to the Southeast, and it's no problem. Like, we have our stopping points, and people are just like, oh, yeah, come on by. But the Northeast has really been something, and we just solidified Portland, Maine today.
Nice.
But yeah, my approach when I email venues that maybe haven't heard of us, I'm really not interested in trying to describe what we're like, or it's just like, do you know who we are? Because if you don't, I guess I have some explaining to do, but hopefully you just kind of know who we are because we've been around for 40 years. So it kind of goes from there. And like, if they have heard of us, great. That makes it that much easier. But it's really funny that you asked that because
topical.
Booking this tour has been maybe the most challenging tour I've ever had to book.
Well, and I think that I've noticed that, and I've talked to other bands that have had that problem, and on what I can only call a microcosmic scale compared to Cheer Accident, which is to say that the problem with the band is the appeal of the band, is that it's not just the one thing. And people only want, like, you're lucky if you get people to pay attention to one sentence. You know what I mean? Like, if you can get it to one sentence.
You actually, I've been trying to, you just used the word appeal, and I've been trying to think of this thing that Todd Rittman said like many, many years ago. Do you know him at all?
Oh, yeah. No, he's been on the show. It was like years ago, though.
Okay.
Actually, shoot, it might have been when you were still playing in Dead Rider, now that I think about it, because it was a long time ago. But anyway, yeah, I'd love to have him on again sometime. But yeah.
Really amusing. He heard Introducing Lemon for the first time, and he's like, I think you guys have too much appeal. I'm like, yeah, that's probably it. Too much.
Yeah,
appeal.
that's it. That must be it. Yeah.
That down.
Can you just be a little less appealing? It's too distracting for everybody else. Exactly. Yeah, that's. But I think there's this balkanization of genre now, and I think there's almost an expectation of self-categorization that comes from part of it being flying the flag of your specific subgenre, of whatever. That if you don't do that, then there's almost like a lack of interest to it. And this is not something that I've seen until like a few years ago, and it seems to be just have gotten even worse now somehow.
Yeah, it's just gotten so refined. Like, and I mean, on the extremely rare occasion when I check out just the regular radio stations, it's like modern rock music has gotten so extremely refined. I mean, this has been happening over the course of, I'd say, 20. Well, I don't even know where to pinpoint it. Might have even started in the late 70s, but for the last 25 years, the marketing of rock music has led to it becoming such a science that's like, wow, we know exactly what rock music is now, don't we? Like, it has to have these exact parameters, and that's the fun thing about the era that I sort of cut my teeth on with, like I would say the early to mid 70s. On the radio, you didn't know what the hell you were going to get.
Sure. Yeah.
But, Sly and the Family Stone, followed by the Carpenters, and it's like, and I sort of lapped it all up. I'm like, yeah, this is all great. Yes, please.
Right.
And
yeah.
And like rock bands were all pretty different from one another. Even bands that could be seen as more or less being in the same genre, like compare like Black Sabbath with Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
They're really not very similar, but they
we're like
sort of together. And
Thin Lizzy and Deep Purple. Like, sure, yeah, okay, well, those are both great bands, but like they don't sound anything like each other in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And now you have like 12 different rock bands that are basically within like half an inch of each other in terms of aesthetics,
Yeah.
And it has to do with the production, but it starts even before they get into a studio. It's like they're refining themselves into oblivion before a producer even gets a hold of them,
Well, you hit on an important point, and this has come up on this show before, is that in a lot of, especially folks that are coming from the punk rock world, if you sounded like another band, that was like, oh God, these clowns, look what they're up to. Like it was something to be ashamed of, instead of being like, oh yeah, we sound just like so and so. I'm like, well, okay, well, I can listen to those records though.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to hear those records.
Yeah.
And I feel like what you've just said, like I feel like that's kind of happened in almost every genre too. Like I feel like that there's been, like, again, I'm really going to earn the ire of all the prog heads on this show, but like so-called progressive music, it's like, wow, you have more of a rule book for this than like anything that I've ever seen. Like this is, you make a hardcore look like psychedelic music. Like this is so just stipulated of like, okay, this is where you're gonna do the thing, then you're gonna throw in like the time signature, and then you're gonna like hit. It's just so like tiresome. Tim, is what I'm trying to say. Is it tires me out? It makes me tired.
Yeah.
And I think one of the nice things about Chirax then, and again, even just checking in with you with the different records, let alone seeing different iterations live, it's not boring. That's for sure. It's never boring. Like there's always something happening. There's always something incredibly unexpected, like a weird head fake of some kind that like seems to be, if nothing else, for the delight of the people in the band. But by extension, delight to everybody else as well that is willing to come along for the ride. And it just strikes me how rare that is for something so long-lived to be just sustainably impish, if you will, with the presentation. But it seems baked into like what it is at the same time.
Even when we do, say we do like a 70 or 80 minute set, and it's completely composed, like every note, every rhythm is like meticulously, composed and arranged. When we play that in front of people, I want it to feel like an improv. I want it to feel like spontaneous, and I do think we get there a lot of the time, and this particular lineup we have right now, I just really love everyone in the band, and like the chemistry is so good, and everyone's just so present, and like you said, we'll like surprise one another, like, oh, didn't see that A flat coming.
They sneak up on you, yeah. No, and it's
God.
well, and everybody's again, they're hitting at such a high level too, and everybody's genuinely invested in wanting to be there and wanting to bring something cool to it. And I mean, God, that's hard to do with a power trio, but let alone a baseball team full of people. You know, I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Like, with a power trio, there's a certain amount of energy and focus baked in, and when you start having like 6 or 7 or 8 people, the energy can get kind of diluted, and that can be a problem. And I feel like with the current iteration of the band, that's not an issue actually at all. Like even when someone's not playing, like Laura, our singer,
Who's great.
a lot of the she's not even doing anything, but she is inside the music, you know, like when she's not even doing anything. And that I think everyone is like that. Like they're enjoying it whether they're actively playing something or not, you know.
Yeah. No one's like thinking about their laundry or estimating their taxes or something while the set's going on. You know, like it's.
They're not thinking about their laundry. They're thinking about it in a fun 9/8.
Right. Exactly. I heard a dryer that actually was malfunctioning in 9/8 once. It was actually kind of incredible. And but this was years ago. This was before phone recording, so I would have loved to have sampled that because I was like, this sounds like a great like industrial record or something. Like it was like, but anyway, back to what is that? Yeah, it's a lot of people to wrangle, and especially because, you know, like having the respect and admiration of many people who are obsessive music heads are fine and dandy, but it's not like you guys are exactly high rolling. You know, I mean, there's no like Learjets taking you to these gigs. Like it's not yet. After this Protonic reversal bump, though, yes, Learjets. But that's a lot of schedules. It's a lot of it's a lot. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're talking to the right person in the band for that one. Yep.
So how do you wrangle it? How
Lots of group texts.
I mean, I think that's also kind of the appeal of a more loose-limbed affiliation too, is that it's kind of whatever you say it is, right? Like that's to a certain degree, and not to say that it's going to be like a totally different band necessarily, but I've seen you guys do totally different sets where it seemed like a totally different band. I was like, okay, cool, they're doing this now, right on.
Definitely up for it being many different bands.
Yeah.
But what's the most fun actually is having it be many different bands with the same exact people. Yes.
Where it hits completely differently, like a completely different brand identity, but it's the same people, and that's I'm a fan of, as someone who's been in a band that's open for myself that's the same band but a different band. I totally appreciate that because it is possible and it is fun. And it's also confusing for people, and I like that too. The aspects of live performance, though, I'm just thinking about, like, from a logistical standpoint, when you're in places that are not the places you play all the time, there's a lot of instruments. You know, it's not just a 4-piece rock band, you know, guitar, bass, drums, vocals in the middle. And there's things that need to be heard. There are things that are integral to the songs, to the compositions that need to be heard live. And then can that be a challenge to kind of get over sometimes, maybe to a sound man that doesn't quite get what you're trying to do?
Yeah, that can be an issue. I feel like in the last several years we've mostly lucked out. I don't know. And we have our thing down. Like I feel like everyone in the band sort of knows when to step forward and when to step back. So like that helps a lot. So you're not you're maybe not quite as reliant on a sound person if you're hyper conscious of those moments, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, eat the mic at this part, but then like back off.
Back it off a little bit. Yeah, exactly. You can do your own volume control that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And I think that it's also notable to me that despite the inconsistent presentation, it's very consistently your thing, meaning that it's consistently cheer accent even if it's not the same. It's always different, always the same. And it's kind of hard to pull off.
I really appreciate that because it's a mystery to me, actually, how that works. And I feel like I get to sort of experience it as an onlooker myself.
Right.
Because, you know, it's a little bit of the, you know, forest for the trees kind of thing. And like you're busy with all these details of the show or the album or whatever. But then you step back and you look at, like, say, several albums and you see like this through line, you know, and it's like, oh, well, that wasn't conscious, but it's in there. And okay, now I get to enjoy that, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how that works, and I don't really want to know, you know?
Yeah, maybe it's the kind of thing you just shouldn't question too hard. It just does. It just is, right? I mean, it's clearly working.
A lot of things happen just as the result of doing, you know?
Yeah.
We've really never been the type of folks who just like sit back and like, what should we do now? Like it just
right.
You just do the thing and then let other people hear it, and then that's the other half that happens, and say, okay, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love being way far up my ass and spending 7 hours editing a drum part, but the really rewarding part was when it hits another human being, you know, and then that chemistry happens, you know. Yeah, the other part of the equation, you know.
It comes out of the laboratory and onto your plate. Exactly. Delicious. You invoked Todd Rittman earlier. I realize I've never actually talked to anyone about your time in Dead Rider, but I did see, I think twice, 3 times, 2 or 3 times in Dead Rider. And I thought that was so cool. First of all, I thought you had a great stage look, especially the one time I think you said you had a leather jacket with no shirt on underneath, which I thought was just hilarious and great. But you were at keyboards in Dead Rider. How did that come to pass? I know you have a long affiliation with U.S. Maple and those guys from Chicago way back when, but how did you come to be in Dead Rider, and how did you come to exit Dead Rider?
Well, specifically, I was at Strachan Van Til after I had delivered pizzas this one night. It's when I was working for Congress Pizzeria, and Todd called me. That sounded like I was from Boston for a second. Todd called me.
I got in the car. Yeah.
And sorry, Boston. We'll see you on July 4th.
We'd like to apologize to the Boston listeners.
He told me that Noah had left the band and he wanted me to step in, and I'm just thinking, I can't replace that guy. I have a completely different vibe.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and I loved what he did in that band. and we talked for maybe 15 minutes, and he said, well, I'd really appreciate it. And I just kind of chewed on it probably for literally a couple hours, and called him back. I'm like, yeah, I'm making my way. I think I can do something here. And it probably had something to do with imagining how maybe I could wear a leather jacket with no shirt.
You had big, cool wizard energy, and I appreciated it. And if anybody should look like a cool wizard, it's the keyboard player, for sure.
It was a great experience. Like, I played with them live for 3.5 solid years, and
yeah, I was guessing, 'cause I saw you at least twice with them, and I think I've seen them 4 times now, if I remember correctly. But yeah, 2 of the times was with you, and it was interesting because for me, not that I wasn't already interested into it, but like it gave it a added credibility. That's like, oh, Tim Jones is playing keyboard. Whoa, it must be something important. Like it.
The Yona Kid album didn't add enough credibility.
Just for that one guy. Just for that one guy at that one. No, but it was, and I think Dead Rider's another band that has gone through many iterations and has continued a through line for what they do, and has continued to be unique and interesting. But like, it was a very cool era for that band, and yeah, cool wizard energy. Nothing wrong there.
Dead Rider, and speaking of Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum, that show I mentioned at Lincoln Hall, March 13th, that's also going to have Dead Rider on the bill.
Really? Okay, so this is that announced? I don't think I've heard anything about that, but
I just announced.
We're announcing it now. Wait, what was the date on that? I'll mark my calendar.
March 13th.
March 13th of next year.
Planning ahead.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough.
I wonder if I wasn't supposed to announce it.
Well, look. I think if you read between the lines, you could tell that there's going to be some stuff happening at this point. So, I've broken news on this show plenty of times. I rarely give credit for it, so people just kind of.
That's going to be my defense for like everything that I do wrong. Like, hey, look, I think everyone knows that things are happening. Like, pretty much all the time. That was just one thing that happened.
It was just one of them. It was just one thing.
Sue me. I did a thing that happened. Oh, suddenly it's bad when Tim does something that happens.
Look, people do things every day. This was just but one of them, right? Exactly. I think we can all agree.
God, I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I owe you one, for sure.
Well, and that's so that's a great triple bill of bands that kind of, do their own thing, but have common cause in maybe the approach and the sense of adventure to the music without sounding like each other. And that's there's precious little of that, to my taste, frankly. And like peace and love. I'm not trying to be an asshole about it. Have you seen that video, the Ringo Starr Peace and Love video? Have you seen this?
Well, doesn't he say that every time he appears anywhere?
Well, the big thing was that he was sick of people sending him fan mail, so he made this video.
Right. Okay. I know what you're talking about.
And he was just being a total jerk about it, but they kept saying peace and love. So the new thing, having reacquainted myself with this video, every time I say something rude or annoying, like I just tag it with peace and love because I think it's hilarious, because it's like the magic words to absolve yourself of all sins, when you're being a jerk, which I apparently do frequently. Anyway, okay, so talk to me about recording, because of course I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Tim. The process of recording has changed over the years. Are you aware of this? How has it changed for Cheer Accident, though? Meaning that, like, when you first started off, you had to pretty much, it was either like, boom boxes and 4 tracks or like go into a proper studio. How was the process of recording change? Because again, as we've established, your records are very lush. Thank you, Gareth of USA Nails. And there's a lot going on to it. Even when there's not a lot going on to it, it's intentional. And I'm curious as to how that process has changed for you over the years, especially with like modern technology.
Well, I feel, I got Pro Tools for the first time in 2013, and that was pretty life-changing. I've always been a recording obsessive. I used to take 2 Panasonic tape players, those like portable Panasonics from the 70s, and I would like record like, I don't know. There were these things that we played in the school band. Well, not even the school band, just like at class in like 5th grade, called tonettes. They're like, the less fortunate sibling of a recorder, just these like black clarinet looking things, and they call them tonettes. And
anytime you have "et" attached to something, it usually means it's like the lesser sibling, like the less successful sibling of the other thing.
Yep. So, I had one of those at home, and I would like record a melody, with one of the Panasonic recorders, and then I would hit play, and I would add something to that, like maybe play some pop cans or something. To them. I wish I had those recordings.
It sounds interesting. Yeah, it sounds like it could. Yeah,
like Jef Bek or something.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, getting too big for my britches in 7th grade, I'm like, that's so 2 years ago. I would just like record over it, and I really still had those recordings. But so yeah, I would just play the recording on one Panasonic and record it on the other and just keep going from recorder to recorder, tape to tape that way, like building up tracks and it's a maddening way to work. And then I got like a more sophisticated cassette deck. So then I would use 2 cassette decks and do the same thing.
Sure.
But I worked that way up until my early 20s, and that's mental illness inducing, because like, I would do like an 8-minute song with lots of changes, and you have to get the performance right, you have to get the mix right as you're doing it before you move on to the next step. Like if you have just a piano, you're playing the drums to the piano for that whole 8 minutes. If you screw up, got to do the whole
thing
again. And then add trumpet or whatever. And then there's the tape speed issue, which it took me a long time to figure out, because if you record on one and then play it on a different one, you have this tape speed.
It's going to be close, but just different enough to cause problems, basically.
Yeah, different enough, as in like sometimes almost a quarter tone off. And like, I'm like, why does my trumpet sound so out of tune compared to the piano now? It wasn't like that before. Like, what? Yeah. And that was really confusing. So that's another layer of mental illness inducing. But so finally I got a 4-track when I was in my 20s, and that helped immeasurably. And then I went to an 8-track cassette. And then I went to a 16-track digital thing. And that was a real game changer.
Yeah, I bet.
Or no, it was a 24-track digital, a Roland digital recording unit. And then from there, I went to Pro Tools. But one of the things I like about Pro Tools is, you can do like the lower bit thing. You can totally lo-fi, and that's my dream come true, because way back in the day I always thought like, wow, I wish I just could have infinite number of tracks but still have it be lo-fi, and now you can.
Like there's something to be said for the like tape compression and like maybe even in some cases distortion where it's like, no, that's actually kind of cool because it for the listener it allows their imagination to kind of fill in things that maybe aren't even there, but you can like almost politely suggest it by omission. Yeah. Thank you.
And I what is there is its own thing. Like it's not. I don't know. I have this thing about sound. Like people get so anal and about like what a good sound is, and it's like any sound can be good. Just do something with it, you know. Just like follow the lead of what that sound is sort of like hinting at, and go from there. Just like take that sound and do something with it. Like they're all valuable, you know. Like not everything has to be Gaucho by Steely Dan.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's again what I would say as someone, you know, outside the band, as a listener, I feel like there is that level of again, playfulness in certain aspects of it, without meaning, without having aspects of that phrase that could be construed as unimportant, meaning that it's breezy, if you will, in certain aspects, but absolutely deadly serious about making something cool. And I think that there are still. Well, even at recording, I mean, let's face it. Even in the modern times, there's still a lot of orthodoxies of what is a good and a bad recording. Right? I mean, I read tape op, you know, and sometimes like, oh God, Jesus. But sometimes it's you know, you can't deny when there's certain things that's like, yeah, nothing about this is the way that it should be, but it is great. You know, it's like this isn't how a guitar should sound. Like the drums, like on their own, sound like garbage, but like, you know, put it all together and it sounds fantastic, and you can't argue with the result.
Like what we're talking about now is the antithesis of what we were talking about like an hour ago. Like how bands, you know, have rock music down to a science now, and there's like I feel like a lot of recordings nowadays they leave nothing to the imagination. There's no work to be done for the listener. It's like there's no room. It's like, okay, that's how everything sounds, and that's exactly how it's going to sound every time I listen to it. There's not going to be any surprises, and I like to hear how sounds sort of just imply things like, oh, that, what is that, you know? Right.
Things that can infuriate you the first time become your favorite thing after multiple listens. Where you're like, oh, actually, that's really awesome. I love that. And that's actually, I was just talking about that with John Ryder No Means No. That like some of my favorite records. I'm like, first time I heard them, I'm like, oh, terrible. And then all the things I thought were terrible, I was like, oh, actually, that's great. And I just don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't ready for it, or it just took a little time to marinate. But I think the problem now, we don't let things marinate.
Well, I was just gonna ask you, like, do you think there's much of that going on where people give something a second or third or fourth chance?
I think you're always going to have music listeners that will do that will invest time into it and be like, I am going to listen to this. I am listening to this for reasons X, Y, and Z. And, you know, I'm going to listen to it, and then I'm going to listen to it again, maybe in a different situation, and like listen differently and find an opinion on it, but not necessarily rush to judgment. And then I think all of these walled gardens, all these streaming services, want you to just move on to the next thing immediately. Move on to the next thing. Everything is, you know, it's like, okay, here's the discography of the Ramones. Here's the discography of Led Zeppelin. Here's the discography of, Sir Lord Baltimore. Like, doesn't matter. Like, like whatever's next. and it's all content. And I think, unfortunately, that a lot of people are being trained to consume content rather than enjoy art.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for giving my TED Talk. But cheer accent's almost the opposite of that. Like, it's almost like, I guess you could. There's certain songs certainly you can just wander into and enjoy just for what it is on the face of it. But when you look at the larger overall artistic statement, if you will, or statements, or artistic experience, it doesn't just reward multiple listens, it almost requires them. Yet, again, all of culture is being programmed to do exactly the opposite. But there's always going to be people that just by nature of who they are going to engage with that way. It's just not. It's not a plurality of humanity.
Well, I do love my fellow obsessives. Like I really think a lot of our stuff is designed to be listened to about 23 times. Before it all kind of kicks in.
Well, because there's a lot of stuff to it too. There's a lot of like small things that are just maybe you don't even pick up on it like the first dozen or so times. I mean, I've gone back, like I said, I've gone back and like listened to some of the old records this week and be like, was that always there? Like, I don't remember that being there, but okay, cool. And I don't know, I've lost a lot of hearing over the years. I don't know, I've got a better sound system now. I mean, who knows, right? But it still was a rewarding experience because it's like, oh, that's cool. Like, it's neat that this something that like I associate with this other time period in my life I was able to engage with it now in this different way and find something new about it.
Yep.
And thank you. Yeah. So I think that there's
great.
Yeah. Well, it's just like I don't want this to be a monologue, you know what I mean? But but I think that it's something that with like it would make sense to me if Cheer Accident on like a greater level, and realize when I say greater level, I don't mean like amongst us rock nerds, but among the art world at large, was to like hit it big. Like if somehow, remember how everybody got into NFTs for a little while? Like Cheer Accident could be an art fad. to a certain degree, because there is so much there and so much like depth, and for people that to focus on, even if they themselves are not artists, but ultimately more rewarding if they are artists. I mean, some of the things that you've done, like I feel like there are songs you have that easily could be your more traditional, we'll call it commercial radio singles. But they just do some like weird left turn stuff where it's like, oh my God, that's great. I think that's great.
A friend came up with a term for that a long time ago. He called it the pop defense mechanism.
It's like the autoimmune response. But it's consistent. I mean, like, but it's consistent in a way that's not. Like, it doesn't come from a place of, like, meanness or anything. It's just that it seems like your natural reaction is, oh, we're going to do something kind of, boom, here's something to inspect. Left turn. All right.
Nothing else. I mean, we are definitely following the golden rule at every step.
Yeah.
Like, would I want to hear this? Yeah. So that's the litmus. We're not trying to put anything over on someone just to torture them. It's like, no, we really get something out of this ourselves. We're in this together.
Yeah, it's not a put on. it's very earnestly engaged with the thing it is. And then, I'm also thinking about the various iterations of the culture itself at the time. Like, I mean, like during the American Dream was like Bush era, right? Well, baby Bush. I guess I should clarify.
Wait, what?
During the American Dream, like that was like, was that W. Bush? He was the president around then, right? If I remember it.
Oh, yeah, that came out in '97, so it would have been Clinton.
Okay, well, anyway, still holds up. Anyway, as as an album title, like there are things that I always think of the phrase "history doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes."
Yeah.
And in politics, as in with music, but there are things that like, and not that like you guys are like the Clash or something along those lines, but there's things that trends have come, trends have gone. Rock is dead. No, wait, rock is back now. Oh, rock is dead again though. Okay, and I feel like the entire time you guys have just keep on trucking. That old sticker, the keep on trucking, with the guy with the big foot. I feel like that's the sheer accident way, is that you guys just got it's almost like it's not that you ignore those things, but they don't ever come into the process of what it is you're doing in the lab at that moment in time.
Right.
Was that really 97 for that one? Wow, God, my sense of history is jacked. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're not looking around to see like, oh, what should we do next that's, similar to this. We're not trying to hitch our wagon to, I don't even know the phrase. We're not hitching our wagon to anyone, yeah.
How do you feel?
Getting like darker and darker because the sun's going down.
Well, exactly. This is the danger of doing things outside. Tell me just, okay, there's a lot of Sheer Accident compilation appearances. And some of them are more straightforward than others, is probably the best way to put it. How do you approach being on these comps, and how have you approached them over the years? Because some of them, like we mentioned, like there's the 5-second version, or however short it is on the
Skin Graft.
The Skin Graft, yeah.
You mentioned Shaft. That's on like a K-Tel parody that
classic
on Prop.
Yeah.
Smashing Pumpkins do Jackie Blue on that album. Compilations come by people just asking us if we want to be on it, and we either just say yes or no.
Right.
We're not looking to be on compilations. Most compilations aren't very enjoyable to listen to.
Every once in a while there'll be one, but yeah.
It's a step down to have these other songs by other people,
Oh yeah, it's quite the step down. Yeah, how dare you? Who knows what rabble you're going to be next to? I mean, exactly. Okay, Tim, tell me about. There are these new records that are coming out, right?
Oh,
the Easy Listening record, right, and the other one you mentioned.
Yeah.
What's up? Go ahead.
Oh, Fringements 2. Okay, so like the Fringement series is just a bunch of miscellanea, just stuff that happened at the practice space, or just.
Yeah, there was that one that came out in 2020, right? There was the CD. Yeah. Fringements 1.
Fringements 1, and yeah, Fringements 2 is coming out in a week, and they're on Skin Graft. And it's really fun putting those together, because it's like, oh, here's this strange moment that happened in 1983. Let's put that up against something that happened in 2010 that's from a completely different band. Like it's really enjoyable to have that much disparate material to work with at the same time. It's a fun challenge. And then, the Easy Listening album, which we've been threatening to make for like 25 years now, is like, 3 of the songs are half written by our guitarist who died in 1999. So.
Oh, wow.
So these songs have been lying around for a long time, and we just waited I guess we were waiting for Burt Bacharach to die.
So were you? So in wow. So were you in? So you were talking about this with Phil, like that all the way back then. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, elevator music used to be a thing. Like it's not. I don't know if it's. I don't hang out in elevators that much. I don't know if it still is, but.
And when I use the term easy listening, I guess that is what people they think of. Yeah, elevator music, and which elevator music now isn't the same as what it was in like the early 70s. And I don't even really mean that kind of easy listening.
Yeah, what should people expect from it? Because again, like by the way, I like the elevators earlier stuff better too. So yeah.
Well, it's just well, it's not elevator music at all. It's not that what is the word for what that is? It's not that syrupy or something.
Right.
It's it's a little bit, well, it's significantly grittier than that. You can almost call it more like soft rock than easy listening.
Yeah, I mean, you invoked Hal David earlier, right? I mean, there's a rich catalog of all the stuff he did with the back then, and people will be like, "Oh yeah, is that who wrote that?" Like it's just like this kind of stuff that's in the zeitgeist.
I mean, it definitely owes a lot to Burt Bacharach. It definitely owes a lot to Herb Alpert's approach to that stuff, which I prefer his production approach in the Like I think that Tijuana Brass stuff in the 60s is perfect.
Oh yeah.
It's not, generally speaking, it's not like overblown. There's like a lot of nuance to it, and it's very intimate sounding. Like people associate the Tijuana Brass with the like really up stuff, like Tijuana Taxi and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I really like Herb's melancholy stuff. I mean, I think he's a great pop singer on the trumpet. Really is how he approached the trumpet as like a pop.
Yeah, as a pop instrument, which nobody did. By the way, did you know that Dan Hobson from Killdozer has a Herb Alpert tribute band? And I saw them open for the Melvins, and it was awesome. and there was a bunch of people that that were not ready for that, and that was great to see. And I'm only bringing it up because that's one of the most random things. I'm like, I did not have this on my bingo card, but I'm here for it.
Is it the same instrumentation? Like,
yeah, it's a big band. Like there was a lot of people to it, and they took the arrangement seriously. It was relatively straightforward, and it was just those songs with Dan Hobson, and I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, why not? Sure. Great. When
we played with No Means No at Knitting Factory, this was in like 2000, I don't know, 3 or something maybe. They played a really great rendition of A Taste of Honey.
Nice.
It was like a rock version, but it was really, it worked really well. It was really great.
Well, there's a reason why those songs are still known, even if people don't know where they're from. There's a reason why those songs are still known, and like there's a reason why they're earworms, right? Like it's say what you will about the arrangements, but again, going back to the fact that the Beatles kind of changed everybody's idea of, okay, the band has to be writing their own songs, this and that. It's like no, they were like literally standards. It was like songwriting was a job. And if you were in a band, you weren't necessarily a songwriter. And you could be great at being in a band and terrible at songwriting, which, by the way, a lot of bands today are. Thank you. So is the idea of doing this is to sort of evoke those vibes, like those types of records, but like your version of them?
Not really. It really, it's just like we embraced the influence of.
Okay.
Because it was already there as an influence, and we just accentuated that influence and focused that influence into one album. And we actually do that a lot. We'll take one aspect of the band and pursue it heavily in one direction for an album. We're kind of always, well, not always doing that, but we've often done that. And we just wanted to make a whole album that owed itself to that. But we're not really trying to fit into a genre, and we're not trying to bring people back in like a nostalgic way. And I mean, a lot of people don't even know that era to be nostalgic about it anyway. So
yeah.
So we don't. Yeah, it's not that cut and dried. It's just letting that influence have its day in the sun is how I would put it. It's how I did put it.
Yeah, well, I think you've got and there's aspects of stuff that you guys do where it's like, oh yeah, this is just like, this part is just straight up Blue-Eyed Soul or whatever, but it's like in the middle of this song that's doing other things. And it almost means more because of the context, like where it's at, rather than like if it was just a band that they sound like early Bee Gees. Cool. Right on. I like that stuff too.
Thanks for rocking my favorite word, context.
Context is key, my friend. Context is key.
Context isn't everything. It's the only thing.
So are there any other tour dates that aren't announced that you want to announce coming up?
This is a really weird turn of events, but we're playing with Def Leppard at Wrigley Field. Let's see, this is June 3rd, 2028. Be there.
That's the context police right there in the background, if you can hear them. Yeah. So there's some tours coming up in the Northeast. Whenever people don't, most people listen to this later on, so that may or may not be announced already. But what in this era of social media and the balkanization of literally everything for communication mechanisms, what's the best way for people to find out about Cheer Accident stuff, in your opinion, Tim? Scrying Stones, maybe? No. kidding.
Are you talking about live? Finding
Yeah.
We just reminded. I hope we have those dates on our website. We may not yet, actually, but usually Cheer Accident, cheer-accident.com is a good place to get tour dates. I post stuff on Facebook. That's probably the best way. I hate to give credit to Facebook, but they're probably the reason we never have like 3-person shows anymore when we go out to other cities. Like that really does seem to be a thing of the past, because the word does get out there,
I'm looking at your website right now, and I'm looking forward to these shows in April of 2022 that you have on here.
Oh boy, yeah.
I'm going to fire up the TARDIS and be right there. In fact, I think I was at one of them, so I just have to watch out not to run into myself. That's the important thing.
We'll get the new dates up there real soon.
We know what Mike Watt says. Having your own website's like having your own fanzine. So you got to do it.
Hey, do you want me to plug when I'm going to talk to him?
Sure.
Rival?
Are you going to talking to Watt? He's a friend of the show. He's been on.
Yeah, we talked. Jeff and I talked to him a couple of years ago, and I'm going to talk to him on Juneteenth. But I don't remember. I don't remember if it was live or if he.
It's done. I'm really going to open up the store here and tell everyone what's going on. He pre-records them, but they're done in segments. You've done it before, so you probably know, but it's like lightning quick.
Right.
So.
Right.
I told Joe Cannon, because Joe Cannon was on, I was like, look, You're a quick-witted dude. I'm telling you right now, it's gonna go quicker than you think. Like, be ready. Keep it succinct. Don't tell any long-winded stories. Like, you'll never get to the end of them.
Yep.
Anyway, great. So look.
Recorded on June 19th, but I don't know when it's gonna air.
He puts them out pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean, much respect to Watt. He's like, he doesn't need to do that, and he does, and I think that says a lot about him. But yeah, you got to keep that website updated for from before you get on the Mike Watt show. He's Tim, this has been great, man. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Kind of a long time coming, but when we actually got the logistics going, it wasn't that difficult to do. I always appreciate what you do. Looking forward to all of the stuff coming up in the future. Last thing that I ever ask on this show, this is a canned question. You can choose to interpret it however you like. Why do you do what you do?
To find out stuff.
One of my, I usually just let that be it, but one of my favorite authors is the physicist Richard Feynman. He has a book called The Pleasure of Finding Things Out. That's like one of my favorite things. So
say that again. A loud car went.
The Pleasure of Finding Things Out is the name of the book, and I was like, God, that is so good. That's so great. Thanks so much, man. Really appreciate you.
Really fun. Thank you.
Until next time.
Take care.
All right. There he goes. Thymme Jones, sure accident. What a cool guy. Love that dude. Love what that dude does. He's going to be playing a lot coming up. So watch for that website. Here's some Sheer Accident. Filet of Nod. It's your accident. That's off of Dumb Ask. This is Failure.
Right up to the sky, drenching a cloud. The rays from the earth burning the sun. The affected cause transgress the law, pendulum gravity. Reverse the flow upside down. Hourglass, figure-eight infinity, set on end. The sky breaks open, forming a wound. The bullet returns, tracing a line. The affected cause. Turn back the clocks, making up for the loss. Reverse
Failure. Off of Enduring the American Dream. More chair accident for you. Let's do it. Dream Place. There you go. That's the Dream Police off of Here Comes the Sunset by Cheer Accent. I just love that cover. I really do. And before that, again, Failure off of the Enduring the American Dream record. Before that, Filet of Nod off of Dumb Ask. Yeah, that was Mr. Tim Jones of Cheer Accident, and that was a good time. Hope you guys enjoyed that. For all to most things Cheer Accident, cheer-accident.com. They're on Facebook as well. They're on Instagram. I don't even know if they're even doing anything with that, but anyway, it's whatever. I'd like to thank Tim for coming on the show. Great dude, great band. The name of this show, of course, is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. Thank you so very much for listening to it. This show airs 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific, Thursdays. Streaming on YouTube and Twitch. ProtonicReversal.com for the archives. Always free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. If you like the show, want to get episodes sooner and help support the show, though, you can do so. Patreon.com/ProtonicReversal. $1 a month achieves that goal. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Thanks to everyone for liking the episodes on the various social medias, sharing them around, writing reviews, things along those lines. As absurd as all that stuff is, it's how we beat back the mighty algorithm, folks. Those algorithmic overlords. A bunch more stuff coming up. I'm back at it. So, tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell a friend of me. And stay safe out there.
Out on Route 128.
And take it easy.
Dark and lonely. I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear